It's raining all over the world. Anyway, why am I singing It's a Rainy Night in Georgia? You know, we're in October now, so of course it's autumn, but we call anything after August or September winter, right? So we're in winter now. The mornings are really darker than usual, as you know. We work early hours, so the mornings are really dark. But the first thing I saw this morning was rain, and I thought, oh, what kind of day is it gonna be? Anyway, we'll get into that in a minute. Drivers Mate Podcast, or Drivers Mate Podcast. You know why we whisper? It's the Truman Show of the Truman Show. What would happen if Truman decided to take control of his life in the Truman Show and shoot his own Truman Show and make the audience of the Truman Show watch his Truman Show in the Truman Show? So that is what Drivers Mate Podcast is, right? Now, ironically, right, I was watching back, I think it's Backrooms and Brothels episode, right? And I was speaking about some of my work stories and that. 1 second. And I was like obviously I'm very ADHD, right? And if you watch this podcast, you can tell. And I jump from thing to thing very quickly, right? So when it's telling my own stories and recounting my own experiences, sometimes I just go completely off the rails, right? I'm in one thing and then I'm in another, just like that, just as quick, right? So I apologize for that. I'm trying to get a bit better at that. I'm not a great storyteller, but I'm trying to learn, right? So when I was thinking about my work stories, right, from the Backrooms and Brothels thing, right, many more memories just came flooding my mind, right? Flooding, ironically. You'll see why in a minute, right? But I thought, yeah, although I touched on the privacy of me not wanting to violate the privacy of my colleagues and my company and customers, right? And I said, I really do need to be careful about how I tell these stories. I really want to tell them, but I want to be quite, I'd say succinct. That's not the right word, right? I want to be quite careful with how I tell these stories anyway, right? If I can. But this particular story I'm going to talk about today, right? I don't really care, right? And you understand why. So, the reason why I don't much care about this particular story is the person I'm going to talk about, right, it is an ex-colleague, but is at a different job at a different time in life. But this person is a self-confessed racist, right? He told me flat out, look, in my youth I was very racist, I said these things, I did these things, right? And he told me this, right? So take that however you want it, right? But at the same time, people do change, right? So I nod my head, tilt my hat to that fact that although he is a racist, we still work together, right? We still done our job, right? We've got work done, right? So yeah, people are weirdos, people are people come from different backgrounds, different ideologies, different thoughts, but anyway, that's not the point of this, right? Maybe that is, maybe I'm just so much of an optimistic, I just believe in the good of humanity too much, right? That's probably why I always get hurt in life, right? But yes, anyway. So, I'll tell you a little bit about this story, right? It's not a big story, it's not a deep story or nothing like that, right? So basically, this brother is was like one of the lead gas engineers in a big gas company, right? So for many years he put in his work, he done what he done, right? He was the big guy, right? He's the big man, right? So one day, I had a job I'd been on already, right? I'd gone out with other gas guys as well. Oh, there's so many stories I could tell you about certain gas men, right? And certain jobs, yeah? But plumbing, plumbing, yeah? Gas plumbing, anyway. But yeah, he was the big guy, right? Quote unquote, the big don, right? The guy that taught everyone, right? So I'd gone out with all the other gas guys, right? And then on this particular day, I'd been booked to go out with him, right? And I've never met him before, so I didn't know what to expect, right? So I just treated him the same as I treated everybody else, right? But anyway, when I meet this guy, right, before we get to that, yeah, nah. See what I mean about my ADHD-ness, right? I want to tell you the story, and I'm trying not to divulge too much about everything, right? But in a sense, right, you'll probably be able to piece two and two together. And if any of those people ever watch this, they'll be like, I know exactly who you're talking about, I know the day you're talking about, right? But never mind that, anyway. So, before we even set out on a job, right, and we get into the talking part, right, my man hops in the van, right? he hops in the van, right? I'm thinking about it now, right? And he has a big 2-litre bottle of Coca-Cola, right? And I'm thinking, alright, that's a bit mad, isn't it? Like, no water, no coffee, no nothing, right? And he's just backing this big 2-litre bottle of fucking Coca-Cola, right? And I'm gonna tell you why it's a mad thing a bit later on, yeah? But he jumps in the van, yeah, and he's like fucking backing his 2-litre bottle of Coca-Cola, like, first thing in the morning, right? And we were talking early morning shit, right? I was like, you're fucking mad, yeah? But anyway, yeah, there was that, and that made me look at him with a bit of a side eye, like, you're a strange individual, right? That much Coca-Cola this early in the morning, and why? Like, and you could tell, right, because I jumped in his van this day, because he's the big man, of course, right? So there was just half-drunk bottles, and the maddest thing was, right, he pulled this Coca-Cola bottle out of God knows where, right? It was already in the van, it wasn't refrigerated, it was already half-drank, and it was just like, what the fuck? That's probably some just grimy, you know what I mean? You don't do that shit, right? I don't know what other people are like. If it's a small, like, what? Even then, right? If I leave a drink in the car overnight, right, or in the van, or however long, I'm not drinking it the next day, right? And it has its own implications of what gas is, or I don't know, man. Maybe it's just me being weirdo, right? Being a bit OCD and all of that, right? Being a little bit of a cleanly freak, right? Anyways, yeah. But see what I mean about me being a bit ADHD, right? So I got off the topic. So yeah, at this job, right, I've already, in the most polite way possible, right, when working with other people, when you go out on the road, everyone has their own ways of working and their own ways of living their own lives, right? And you acknowledge that and you respect that. But me as a non-smoker, right, I would tell everyone that I had to work with, my driver's mates and the people I would apprentice with, right? Bro, no smoking in the van, innit? I don't smoke, so I don't want you to smoke cigarettes in the van, right? And some people give me pushback and they're like, nah. But then once they say I'm serious, and I'll be like, look, if you're going to smoke in the van, I'm taking you back to the depot, or I'm not getting in the van with you, right? This day is not going to start if you're going to smoke in the van, right? And because of this particular time, right, and he was the big guy, I didn't really think to say that to him, right? Because I didn't even think he smoked, right? But yeah, we set off now, and he's drank his fucking, and he started to drink his liter of Coke, right? And then obviously I'm on my phone and that in the passenger, and I look over and he's like this. Like, he drives like this, bro. Yeah. Even that made me think, what the fuck was wrong with this guy? Like, he's probably like this, probably drives like this. If you lot are watching, you're like, oh, you're a prick, bro. Why are you violating the guy? Yeah, I'm not a gossip guy, right? Although I'm telling you one of many work stories, right? You really don't. I'm really not that way inclined, right? And also, I can't be a gossip guy because I don't have any social life, right? So who the hell would I gossip to, right? Do you know what I'm saying? So there's so many stories that I'm trying to learn how to communicate better. So maybe I can even talk about my traumas and the things I've really experienced in life in a more succinct way, right? Than just, yeah, man, I'm troubled, right? You know what I mean? Like shit like that. I know it sounded a bit, like I said, ADHD. I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere, right? But anyway, my man's driving like this, yeah? I don't know if you can really see it on the camera, but man's driving like this all the way to London, yeah? And it's just a big white man as well, right? It's not no black guy, it's not no... Anyway, yeah? I don't even know why I made that stereotype. You get the point in it, like... Yeah, like... It was funny anyway, yeah? But my man's fucking... He's pulled out a cigarette and started smoking, yeah? And I'm like, bro, what are you doing, innit? You can't do that, bro. And obviously, because he thought he was the big man and all that, right? He's like, oh, come on, man, nah. All the geezer talk, right? I'm like, nah, allow that, brother. If you're going to do that, yeah, just drop me off, or let's go back to the depot and I'll jump out, right? So eventually, he stopped, right? He fucking smoked the rest of the cigarette out the window, right? And that's the kind of person he's dealing with here, right? And I know he thought he could pressure me, like, and finesse me into letting him smoke during the day. And I'm not having that, right? I always say, even if I'm driving, if I'm not driving, if you're a smoker, I understand. I will actually pull over and let you just smoke your cigarette. I don't care, brother, because I'm getting paid by the hour. I don't give a fuck if you want to stop and smoke a cigarette. Fine, mate, but you're not going to do it in the van with me. I don't want to go home smelling a cigarette. I don't want to be breathing in secondhand cigarette smoke. I just don't, right? I have my own reasons for that. We'll get into it another time, right? But anyway, as we're on our journey and he's driving like this, right? And I figured out why he was driving like this a bit later on, right? So anyway, yeah, he's telling me about he's the big gas guy, right? And obviously at work, you sort of like work stories, and most of the time, because I'm who I am, a lot of people think they know me and know about me before they actually meet me. So it's usually like quite a surprising thing when I'm like, actually, I'm not the person you think I am, I'm this person, right? And they're like, oh, actually, yeah, he's alright, he's a decent lad, yeah. But anyway, that's your own like stereotypes and you know, people's thoughts of how people from here should act or people of this colour should act. There's all of that nonsense happens in the working world, right? But anyway, he's telling me, like, basically he's giving it the large, right? All the people I work with, right, that are a bit old, well, much older than me, they always, at the time as well, they always give you that like, they give you their work history, right? They give you their like proverbial CV, right? All the shit that they've done and they live their life. And you look, and at the same time, you kind of think, well, if you've done all of this, right, why are you fucking doing the same job as me, bruv? I ain't got all this experience, right? Do you know what I mean? So, you get it, but you know what I mean? You're obliged because lives are different. People have different choices. And like we said in other episodes, sometimes when you're in when you transition from somewhere and you're deeply entrenched in a work or a thing, yeah, sometimes you get sick of it and you're like, fuck it, I just want the easiest version or the easiest thing I can do where I don't have to worry, I don't have to stress no more, and it still pays the bills. And sometimes I don't need it to pay the bills. I just need some fuck you money and fuck off money, you know what I mean? So I understand it from that point of view as well, right? I've worked with people that are retired, right, and they just work for the fun of it because they're bored and they're lonely and shit like that, right? So working world is a strange place, right? So anyway, my man's telling me about his gas history and that, right? Because he's the top gas man, or he was at a company that shall not be named, right? But he was telling me about his gas history, right? And he's telling me, you've worked with this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy, right? And I'm like, yeah, I worked with them. They're all right, yeah. And he's like, I've taught them, right? I'm the reason they are who they are. You know, like one of them, man, right? Like, I fucking taught them how to do gas, right? I done the course for them. I showed them what to do. I was like, all right, fucking, yeah, cool, right? So anyway, we get to London, right? I think I was working in Tottenham that day, right? Ironically, yeah. I think I was working in Tottenham that day. So we bust the first two jobs decently, right? And then there was a couple of little jarring, like, unsynchronized things that happen in between, but they're not really that serious, right? The job's a job. You work with different people, they work in different ways, right? Job's a job, right? You accept that. But then, yeah, we got to one job, right? And I know people are going to be like, what is it with you and Asian people? Like, and it's not, I'm not talking about Arab Asian people, I'm talking about Chinese people this particular time, right? But it should be clear and obvious at this point, right? I love Asian culture, I love Kung Fu films, I love the food, I love anime, I love it, right? Interact with Asian people as well, I love Asian women too, right? And that, right? But anyway, before I even get into, because I did mention that this guy's a self-confessed racist, right? I did, didn't I? So before I even get into that, right? Because that's a separate thing, and there was a lot of that energy at those jobs as well, like, and it's like I treat everybody with respect and to their culture. They're different people. I work in African households, Arab households, Somali households, white British households, Eastern European households, you name it, Chinese people, all of them, right? Everyone is just a normal customer, right? And they all live differently. You get to see how they live. Some people are super polite, some people are just pieces of shit and so rude, and people are people, right? So let's not categorize them by their race and their culture, right? Because like I said, I've met, so that's another story, right? I met one Chinese woman one time, right? She owned a flat. It was a bloody pigsty, but she was a hard-working lady, right? She owned a flat in the most expensive place in London, and not only she owned one, she owned two, right? And the shop, right? But hard-working people, they don't like I said, if you're a really busy person, you don't really give a fuck about the place where you're operating from, right? It's just to operate from, right? And everything else gets taken care of when it gets taken care of. With that, you give them a blight, right? But anyway, this particular gas job, right? And after he's given us the large, and he's like, yeah, I'm the guy, right? And I'm the guy, yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So all right, cool, yeah. We get to this Chinese house, right? And they're very respectful, very nice, right? And they're just talking to the father or the dad of the whole place, right? And he's cool, right? Really respectful people, right? You can see their culture all around and the stuff that they have. The way we just interact with them, oh, that's interesting, that painting's nice, and no, that just normal conversation, right? Observational conversation, right? So anyway, I'm helping him do the job, right? And then here's what the fuck I did, right? With all due respect to him, yeah. and all people that work in trades, they understand exactly what happens next, right? Because of all of that confidence, and I've been doing this for years, I don't need to do it the way because you know, when you're working with someone for the first time, you start passing them tools, and you say, oh, do you need this, do you need that, right? I'm going to set up the aerial for you to do it like this, right? And they're like, no, I don't need to do that, that's for the novices, right? And he actually said that, right? He's like, that's for the novices, I know what's what, I know what I'm doing, right? And what does he do, right? He fucking drills a water pipe, bruv. And alright, so when you do a gas job, right, you gotta do all of like the measuring of the meter, you gotta switch the shit off and all of that, and you test it, and it's all kinds of things happen in a gas job, right? But after you get past all of that testing and making sure it's cool to do your job, right, you have to do like it's not soldering, but it's copper plumbing, right? So you cut it, you join it with the paste and all of that, you burn it and all of that, right? So you've got to do that bit first, yeah, after secondary, right? So we're on that bit now, right? And not only did he fuck up on the drilling the hole in the wall, he fucked up on the piping, right? So he had to, it was just mad, bruv. He had to keep making different pieces of pipes to fix the pipe that he fucked up. So initially, he done it so many times, right? They had to just rip it all out and start again, like about 3 or 4 times. And I'm like, you're the guy, yeah? With all due respect to him, he probably was the guy back in the day. He was just having a bad day, right? Because it happens to everybody. But he fucked up bare, right? Like, I mean, on his job, he fucked up bare, right? With the piping on all of that, right? Fuck, man, that was a funny ass job, right? But anyway, while he's doing that piping, right, you know, you gotta put your pipes against the wall, right? So what you're supposed to do, it's really supposed to be a safe zone, right? With all fairness to him, it's not supposed to be any pipes behind these areas, right? But in Tottenham, in London and stuff, right, the landlords and the people that build these houses, some of them are old, some of them refurbed houses. And ironically, actually, to give this guy furthermore of a bly, right, the Chinese man knew that there was a pipe behind there, right? And he had a leak happen there before, right? So, and he told us this after the fact, right? So yeah, to give the man a blight, there shouldn't have been any water pipe behind there, but because of the way the house was built and modified and all of that, there was a fucking water pipe behind there. So when he's drilling the thing to put it in to hold it, right, he's gonna drill the fucking hole in the man's water, right? So the water's just going everywhere, boom, boom, just blowing up the whole fucking place, right? So it's running off, to go switch the water off, right? You know what a leak's like? You just go into panic mode, just like, fuck, where's the stop call? And all of that shit, right? You're just off, right? Because even if it happens in your own house, you're the same way, and it's very comic. It's like a cartoon, like you're slipping and sliding and trying to run and go find this fucking thing and switch it off before the whole place gets flooded, right? So that's happened now, right? And he's done what he's done, and the problem is, right, where he's bust the fucking pipe in the wall, right, he can't solder. So now the water's not only leaking in the wall, right, it's leaking on the copper piping as well. So he can't solder the pipes, fix the pipes. So we just went for a long madness. Like, there's supposed to be about at least 10 jobs that day, right? We got into 3. That was the 3rd job, right? And we didn't finish that job fixing it, right? And here's the kicker, right? We had to leave that job, yeah, and go find a fucking screw fix. If you're on training, you know about a screw fix, right? They've got everything, whatever you need, you can just go in there and just like, baby, I need this, bang, 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 yeah. So we had to go to screw fix and all that, right? And I think this was Tottenham, if I'm not mistaken. It's that side of London, right? But we found one anyway, went there, got the fucking pieces to fix this thing, right? Gone back to the job, right? And obviously the Chinese man was upset with him, right? But then this is an older man, right? And this guy was giving him the like, fuck you, prick kind of thing, right? And you know, obviously I can understand he was frustrated, flustered and pissed off, right? But the Chinese man wasn't really disrespectful. He was just like, yo, you gotta fix my shit, bruv. You fucked up, so you gotta fix it, yeah? So with all due respect to the Chinese man, and I showed him that respect too, because at a point you could see they was gonna get into an argument, and then the Chinese man just started to kind of speak to me to like intermediate, which I would do gladly, and I did, right? Because I'm not gonna let you fight an old man on a job, and we're at a job, and you know what I mean? I'm not gonna let that happen. So I just kind of appease the situation, make the customer happy, make my colleague feel supported, right? That's what you do in these kind of situations, right? Just alleviate that kind of stress and that tension between the two of them, right? So you do that. So anyway, we get through all of that, we go screw fix, we come back, we fix it to the best of our knowledge, right? What we thought was fixed, right? So now we're fucking off, right? and we're just about to exit London, yeah, and then get a call, yeah, and he's like, oh fuck, right, and it's up to me to answer it, right? So I'm like, ooh, actually, because think about it like this, right? Like I said, this guy's a self-confessed racist, right? He told me about all of this stuff after, on the way back, right? But yeah, I'm getting paid by the hour, right? And I'm getting paid good money by the hour, mind you, right? So I'm like, I don't give a fuck, because I've done days, yeah, where I haven't left London till like 9, 10 o'clock at night, right? I got to be back at the fucking place at 6 o'clock in the morning, right? I don't give a fuck. I'm a grafter's grafter, right? If you're going to pay me to do a job, I'm going to see it through to the end, right? That's what I'm like. So I decided to answer the phone, right? And lo and behold, it's the Chinese man, right? And what's he saying? It's leaking. No, furthermore, right? Because he tried to finesse, right? When you do jobs with tradesmen and stuff, right? And they've got a big depot and they've got managers above them, right? A lot of the time they like to fob off the customers to customer service and the managers and all that. So they don't have to deal with it on the job, right? And a lot of times certain man will actually turn up to the job and just be like, no, I can't do the job, right? Because it will just make us some bullshit reason, right? And you just get to skip that job, right? Because they're the lead on the job, you just follow them, right? Even though sometimes it's wrong, sometimes it's right. And other times I actually make people stay and do the job. Like, nah, you're chatting shit, bro. Let's get the job done. Because like I said, if I'm here, I want to see it through. And also want to get paid, right? I don't want to have short days unnecessarily. Sometimes you want to have a short day and it's decent. It's good for the reasoning, yeah? Just to have a nice day off, right? Because you're a grafter. But anyway, this particular time I was like, nah, I'm answering the phone, right? So I answered the phone, and the Chinese man thought I was a manager because he had told him it was a manager and all of that number that he gave. I don't know why he did that, right? But I answered the phone and it was the man. He was like, oh, it's leaking again, right? So I looked at him, I was like, it's leaking again. You know what I mean? And he's like, oh, fuck, right? So we had to turn all the way around and head back to the place, right? Because the second thing that would have happened, right? Because to be quite frank, right, he could have just called Caden and had them shut the gas off and just shut the whole fucking place down, right? But he didn't, right? So he actually trotted through to fix the job, right? Which he fucked up, because to be quite frank, if he had just left the job and just gone off, right, he would have been responsible for whatever happened next with the water and the gas and all of that. He would have been responsible, right? He's registered to do this job, right? So he's fucking, we've gone all the way back, right? Seen the Chinese guy again, and again, like that racial tension and that aggravation and all that was there, right? Because also, obviously, man's stressed out. It's the third job and he's been here all fucking day up until like 6 o'clock at night, right? So it's like, this isn't good, right? The day isn't going well and the job isn't going well, right? So understandably, yeah, fine, right? But anyway, we went back, fixed it. Now we're fucking off, right? Back out of London. So remember I said the man was driving like this, yeah? when we got out of the van on the first couple of jobs, I clocked why he was doing that, right? With all due respect, like, as you can see, I'm a man that's got braces, right? Because my teeth weren't the greatest growing up, and I was too poor to actually get them myself at a certain point in life. So once I got money, I was like, yeah, I'm fixing my teeth, right? With all due respect, and I understand, and I get it. But to anyone that's watching, yeah, that's why I have braces as a adult, because I had money now to do it. I could have just gone in Turkey and got a set of fake teeth. I didn't want it, right? I might still, I don't know, right? But that's neither here nor there, yeah? So I'm just telling you that so you know. And if you're out there thinking about being judged about getting braces and all that as an adult, don't, right? Get them. Who the fuck can tell you anything? Me personally, I'm not no gangster, I'm not a bad man, but people can't chat to me in any kind of way, right? And they know why. Repercussions are repercussions, right? So I don't give a fuck what you think, right? I skin teeth in your face with my braces straight, just like that. Like, what are you gonna say, right? Even when I didn't have braces, like, what can man tell me, right? If you know who I am, you know who I am. What are you gonna say, right? But anyway, with all that ego aside, right? I'm not that person anymore, right? So just forget I said that. But remember what I told you, he was fucking drinking a litre of Coke, right? And he's doing all this fuck shit in the morning, right? And there's other things as well, yeah. Well, we'll get into that, yeah. But my guy, right, had one fucking, he had one tooth. He had one fucking tooth. I mean, he's a gas man, right? So he's on decent money, bruv. There's no reason for him to have one fucking tooth in it, yeah. So it's just like, oh man, you're a fucked up guy. Like, I don't know what he's like, but anyway, right? That's what it did. No, like this, yeah. Well, I don't know. I've got my own weird like things. Like when I didn't have braces, I would laugh in a certain way because I didn't want to bust my grin too much, right? And this is real shit. Like I can say because I love myself, right? And I've worked on myself, not even with a therapist, right? But just like self-development, self-acceptance. So like nothing nobody can say to me or try and bust on me can really fuck with me because I'm confident in myself, right? I know what I can do. I know what I have done. I know what life is for me, right? What I'm looking at, what I've been through, right? So it's like that. All of that petty shit don't faze me, right? People like to talk, but like I said, they can't chat to me because they know what I'm on, right? I'll either break you down verbally or I'll break you down physically, right? So there's that, yeah. That's probably why I think I move like that because growing up where I grew up, you had to be like that, right? Or you was gonna get, you know what I mean? You was gonna get used, you was gonna get bullied, all kinds of shit, right? Like I said, right? People think they're bad away from people like me, right? But around people like me, it's like a... Anyway, I'm not going to get into that, right? That's just ego talk, right? Forget all of that, what I just said, right? Anyway, my man had one tooth, right? And it was fucking funny. It was like a big fucking gerbil tooth. Yeah, so remember fucking Kim Possible with the gerbil with Rufus? Yeah, it was a fucking tooth like that. It was all brown and shit like that. Anyway, I'm only saying this because he was fucking racist anyway. I wouldn't say this anyway. But anyway, yeah. On the way back now, this is where my man starts to think, oh, alright, because we're on the way home now, right, he can start kind of taking liberties, right? So he starts telling me stories from his past when he was a young man, right? And like the racist shit that he said to, you know, like, so I've worked with bare these guys, right? They're like, oh, my sister's cousins, aunties, blackies, Jamaican, we have rice and peas every time we see him, right? One of them fucking guys, right? You know what they're like, innit, yeah? It's just like, fuck it, I'm getting paid to be here, so I don't give a fuck what you think, right? So it was like that, and he's telling me his racist past and all of this shit, right? Now he's one of these white men that they don't like black people, but they obsess about them, right? This is the type of white person that talks about black men's penises, right? These are them man, right? So you gotta watch them, right? That is like, you see, the whole racism, a big part of all of that KKKism and that fear of black men and hate of black men is a lot of that is to do with their own weird sexualities and repression and shit like that. They fear seeing black men with white women, and they idolize black men's bodies in sports and shit. They think about black men's penises. They're just fucked up, right? That's why they're racist in the first place, right? And then he's just one of them guys, right? So just understand that. That's why I'm even telling this story in the first place. But yeah, gas and water. Now, I don't know why. Like, I mean, it's been quite a long story already, and I know I ADHD'd the shit out of that story. But like, for what I just said at the end, I was keeping it very surface, very not too deep on what shit he actually did as a kid, and not a kid, but as a man, right? And the things he actually said to people and done. That is the only reason why I'm telling you that, right? So anyway, I'm not even telling you all of it as well. It's just like that. But how did we get here? It's a rainy night in Georgia. Yeah, that's why we got here, right? I was thinking about rain this morning and water, and you can see it's still kind of wet outside, right? So yeah. Moving on from that, yeah. So a leak, yeah. I've had my own experiences with water leaks as well in my yard, right? And I'm one of them people that I'm not calling nobody to come out if I can fix it, right? So I'll run, switch off the water, then pull on whatever clothes I can pull on, right? And then I'm going to go check the plumbing supply shop and get the pieces and fix it myself, right? That's what I'm like. But I've done that, right, a couple of times. But yeah, the importance of water, right? So ironically, I'm a little bit parched. Now, as you can see, I'm drinking water, not a litre of fucking Coke, right? So, although I'm drinking coffee too, which is like the opposite of water, right? Ironically, Coke and coffee are like the literal opposite of clean water, or what you would want to drink, right? But we do anyway. So yeah, the importance of water, right? You must drink water. As a human, I don't know what percentage it is that we are of water, but most of us is water, right? We're dust and water, right? From a biblical point of view. But yeah. And because I was thinking about the rain and all that, and that water story, that leak, yeah, it just made me think, right, you see how civilization is built? Modern civilizations, or up to a certain period of time, right? Every civilization, community, town, city, village that builds up and up and up, all of these places are built around at accessibility of water, right? Without water, and yeah, I saw an Affinity van as well this morning. That also kind of sparked that thought. But yeah, we're all. It's like a free ad, isn't it? Fucking hell. Anyways, all of these civilizations that we exist in and live around, right, are all built up around water, right? So your lakes, your creeks, your brooks, your rivers, your sea, all of that, right? As humankind, you won't really find our settlements, right, until modern times when we found better ways of transporting water and digging wells and all of that, right? So before that time, all towns, all villages, all fellowships were all set around places where we knew we could find water, right? And that is it's a key to life, right? In ancient Greece, a lot of people believed that water contains everything. All the secrets of the universe is in water, and it might be nonsense, debunked, and scientifically, yes, but realistically, in our actual physical human existence in life, water is super important, right? So you must drink water, right? There's an old Bunny Wailer song, right? It's called Age of Aquarius, right? I'm not really a star sign kind of person. I don't really get it. I don't really understand it. I think a lot of it is woo-woo, but I get even the astrologists, like real astrophysicists that I watch and listen to, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, will tell you actually the idea of astrology and all of that, that's pseudoscience. That's not what we do over here with the actual stars, right? So even that, there's an old Bunny Wailer song called The Age of Aquarius, right? And in it he says, he who is weary, let him come within, right? He who has eyes to see, let him look yonder. And he who is thirsty, let him drink clear water, right? So that is why it's important. And he says other things in the tune, right? Go check that tune, that's a good song, right? So I would really, on this podcast, right, I would really love to get into my music bag, right, and just play you lot tunes that you don't know about, and just give you anecdotal stories about these musicians and how these songs were made. But I don't understand the politics of it in the podcasting world. If I can play certain songs, if I can talk about certain things, I really don't know. I don't understand. I'm new to it, right? So you'll just have to deal with my rancid renditions of songs, right? Every now and again, just in sparse little sparks of imagination, right? What am I talking about, right? ADHD again, right? But yes, he says that about water and the age of Aquarius, right? I don't really know what that means to today. Whenever I hear Age of Aquarius, I just think about the end of 40-year-old Virgin and they're all frolicking around in the fucking on the field and all that, right? That's what I think of, right? But I don't know what I mean. It's fucking funny. Right, yes. Because I had to write a little note of some of this stuff, right? Because I completely forgot. I know I say I don't do scripted stuff. I really don't. It's just that I don't get completely off track and ADHD the whole fucking podcast away, right? That's mainly the point of it. But yeah. I went from thinking about that into thinking about so I remember as a kid, right, I used to watch, because I'm not the youngest child in my family. I'm trying not to bait up my own family too much, right, because they're like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, we don't want to be famous, we don't want to be part of this, leave us out of it, right? I don't want to be famous either, but you get the point, right? Weirdos are weirdos for a reason. The creeps and the Truman watchers are already out there like that, right? So with all that, let me just take their privacy into account too, right? So anyway, you said, like, I was going to say it anyway. So I used to spend a lot of time with my middle sister, right? She's not my oldest sister, but we spent a lot of time together growing up, right? So when I was a little kid, I had to watch whatever the hell she watched, right? Until I got the chance to take the remote and watch what I want to watch, right? So I remember one time we used to watch a show, I think it was Nickelodeon, right? And it was this girl, like a blonde girl, and she had like this power where she would turn into water, right? And she just flop and disappear, right? And it just sprang back memories, right? And I thought about it. That messaging, right, of people just turning into water pops up in a few different things, right? You've got and I'm gonna go really nerdy here, right? But you've got that show, of course, which if any of you know what that show is called, right, let me know, because I'd love to go down the rabbit hole of finding that and just experiencing a little bit of nostalgia, right? We'll get into what nostalgia really is in a minute, but it pops up in a few different shows. Like, I remember it happening in the Spider-Man comic, right? And they do something to Mary Jane, she turns into water, and Peter's like, no, right? And all of that, right? And then it happens in X-Men, and I know it's the same universe, right? But ironically, the X-Men films, I think it was the president or something like that. He turns into water, like he squeezes through like the bars in one of those films, right? And it's just funny, right? I just thought about it, like, although that's a hyper personification of the idea, right? We really are water, right? So if you're not hydrated, right, you will literally disintegrate from inside out, right? So drink more water. This is your message. This is your sign to drink some more water, not fucking liters of Coke or liters of coffee like me, right? Water, yeah. Drink some more water. Maybe you'll be able to slip through some bars at some point in your life, right? But with that, anyway, that, like, I obviously recently, like I said, right, I'm going on tangents and ADHD in my way through life a bit more because I'm talking, right? And by talking, I'm actually clarifying my thoughts, right? Things I've forgotten, like, it's like I was thinking as well, right? See, I did it again, right? I was thinking, like, at some point in my life, right, something happened to me that made me forget so much of my actual existence in life, so much things that I've lived and I've done, and something happened to me. I don't know what it was or when it was, right? I've got an idea what it was or when it was, right? But I'm not really experienced enough to talk about that yet. But something happened that made me forget all of these things, right? But so through me actually talking, right, and because I'm very lonerish, right, I don't use my voice in public and I don't really use my voice in private. So when I do, I'm doing it here, right? So it got me to thinking about shows that I enjoyed, right? I'm not a TV person, but as a kid, the TV is all we had, right? We didn't really have anything else. And I know, like I say that, but we weren't even allowed to watch TV that much. So when we did get allowed to just all the days when you're off school or you wake up earlier than your parents and shit, right? And you had that little time with the TV, you remember those times more, right? So that's what happened, right? And I was thinking about the 90s nostalgia of the shows they made for kids then, and it's so much different, right? And I was thinking about, because my older sister watched these shows and I watched them with her, right? And I'm kind of using her as an excuse because, of course, I could have just fucked off with my colouring books and all this stuff, which I did for the most part, right? And just living out imaginative warrior stories as little boys do, right? Of course, if you ask my older brother and his mates, right, if they come around the house, I was punching them up because I thought I was a Power Ranger and all that, right? Every little boy was like that, yeah? Most of us, right? If he was a manly man, anyway, yeah? Anyway, yeah? But I was thinking about things like the Nickelodeon shows, like, and then your like once-off sporadic TV shows used to come on odd channels like ITV and stuff. So you had like City Guy. I wrote a few down there, right? I can't even remember them. Like, it was like City Guy, Sabrina, all kinds of shit, right? All kinds of good stuff, right? But anyway, the way they set up those things, right? City Guy, that was a proper bait one. That's like, it's mad when I think about it, right? But I appreciated a lot of those shows, right? And I forgot about their existence growing up. But it made me go back into my bag, like the days when I was sick, I would just lay in bed and watch shows, right? And one of my favourite shows, right, ironically, because when I initially watched it as a kid, like, it used to come on early in the morning before I'd go to school, so I'd catch a bit of it while I'm getting ready, is Frasier, right? I know, right? A lot of you are going to be like, what, Frasier? Nah, bruv, Frasier is sick. That show is fucking sick. It's hilarious. And the thing is, he's not even meant to be a comedian, right? Obviously, there's sitcomic comedic stuff happening in it, like the Raymond Show and all of that, right? And the King of Queens, right? But the main actor is not a comedian, right? He's a real actor, right? So the show is just hilarious, right? It's set up around a psychologist, right? Him and his little brother. Now, growing up, right, and learning a bit more, I was actually able to, like, maybe it's my own analysation of it, but I don't know which one is which, right? Because I always get this mixed up. But Frasier and Niles, right? It's Frasier Crane and Niles Crane. They're both psychiatrists, right, in two different lanes. But they are actually meant to represent, in my opinion, Freud and Jung, right? And the relationship between Freud and Jung in the real world. They're two psychologists, you can go look them up, right? I'm not a psychologist, I just know a little bit of pop pseudo-scientific facts and stuff like that, right? And ways of fixing my own mind, right? Because I've got my own issues, right? So I was saying, like, this podcast is so mad, right? It's so long tangent. People just sitting there psychoanalyzing me like I didn't psychoanalyze me. That's the whole ironic part about it, right? Anyway, from my adult point of view on that show, it is literally that. It's like the relationship of psychiatrists and how they deal with people. Now on the show, Frasier is set in Seattle, right? So it has its own connotations, right? But Frasier's like a balding, older single man, right? As a bachelor, and he's got his dad living with him, and he's got his little brother, and he has these like momentary flings with women, right? But the way it's set up, the dialogue is very Shakespearean, but it's also is very comical, right? So I appreciate it from that. But in the show, like, his little brother's always dissing him, like, you're not a real psychiatrist, right? I'm the real thing, right? I actually see patients, right? And the little brother's like a hoity-toity little shit. And another beautiful thing about that show, right? The little brother, Niles Crane, is married to this woman you never see, right? Called Meris, right? And it's such a beautiful, like, show tool, right? A mechanism in the show. Like, you never see Meris, but she permeates in everything the guy does, right, in his existence. It's just fucking hilarious the way they designed it, right? And that's probably another nod to something in psychiatry that I don't fully understand, right? But it's funny, right, for its own reasons. But anyway, Frasier has like a talk show, and the thing he does it like like how Neil deGrasse does that voice, like, I'm paying attention, or, you know. But in the show, Frasier's like, I'm listening, right? And he just goes through all of these funny, fucked up scenarios in his own personal life and with the radio show, right? But I'm just saying all this to say, I love that show, right? And I watched that show every fucking season when I was sick, right? I watched every fucking season of it, right? Love that show. And not to say I didn't, because obviously I watched My Wife and Kids every season as well. All of those kinds of shows, the Fresh Princes, all of that. I love them. Like the black side of sitcom TV. I don't know if you can say it, like comedy dramas kind of stuff. I don't know what they call it, right? But I watched all of them, like the black ones, and they all have their messaging. Then there's Frasier and Raymond and King of Queens and the other guy, but he's a bit before my time, right? The Americans know exactly what I'm talking about, like the famous Jewish guy, he's a comedian as well. Wale done an album with him, right? That guy. Anyway, but in my opinion, he can't fuck with the Frasier show, right? None of them, not even My Wife and Kids, and now watching it back, you see times when I think it's Damon Wayans and he's making reference to this Frasier show, and it's fucking hilarious. Like you watch it back and you're like, oh wow, like you see the real world aspects in these things, and you can see the entertainment side of these things, right? But anyway, I'm not gonna say Frasier Crane inspired me to do Driver's Mate show, but it's just ironic that the way he approached it from a psychology point of view, his show, right, is kind of sometimes how I approach these episodes, right? And I'm nobody to say that I'm a psychologist or anything like that, but yes, I really do appreciate that show. It's fucking hilarious, and you have to watch it. It's like they dive into so many things, right? And even the relationship with Frasier and his dad and all of that, and the way it's set up, and Roz, and it's just fucking funny, man. It's a good ass show, and I know it's like, this black guy likes Frasier, right? He's weird, right? Maybe I'm weird, but you might say, right, Frasier is more intellectual, but it's not even that intellectual, but it is fucking funny, right? Even the use of the word morose is funny, right? It has its own reasons, like I said, it's ridiculous, but anyway, I've always appreciated that storytelling and show making and game making, right? I really fucking love games, right? I haven't really had a chance to dive in it too deep in these podcasts yet, but one day I will do a show just dedicated to my favourite games. And ironically, my favourite games are storytelling games, right? Your Hideo Kojima games, your Metal Gear Solid series, the Resident Evil series, right? Really in-depth storytelling, scene-setting games, right? And although this is like a button bash kind of game, Devil May Cry, that series, loved that as a child as well, right? It's really got in-depth storytelling, right? And ironically, most of these games existed when I was in like junior school, right? So me and other friends that played these games, like as imaginative little kids, you act out these scenes and you come to school, you're like, nah, I'm not a Lycan, right? I'm a vampire, I'm a Lycan, I'm not a vampire, right? I'm Dante, I'm Spada, all of that shit as a kid, you do that. You get sticks and you're sword fighting and shit, right? But I remember distinctively, right, when Grand Theft Auto 3 came out as a kid in junior school, right, it just blew my mind, like the way the world was set up and the storytelling around a single character. Because remember, Grand Theft Auto before Grand Theft Auto 3 was 2D from above, right? And you couldn't see no real detail. It wasn't actually a player running around in a 3D world, right? That was groundbreaking for our time, right? And that fucking blew my mind. So I remember, obviously, because we moved around so much because of poverty and all that shit, a lot of my stuff just got thrown away, right? But as a kid, I had a binder, right? And I started to write my own game, right? Because my older brother inspired me to say, actually, this is possible, right? And not only did he inspire me, he used to let me use his PC sometimes, right? And on his PC, he had a program called Lifeforms, which now is probably still in existence or way further existence now, right? It's really built up. But this kind of technology would have been the things that, like a Publix version of what Disney Pixar would have used to make the early Toy Stories now. So it's a 3D animation program where you can render characters in real time, right? So he showed me how to use that one time. He used to let me play on that, right? And he said to me, actually, if you was to study this, right? Because my older brother's a fucking genius, but neither here nor there. We'll speak about him at some point. But my older brother's a fucking genius, right? I'm not just saying that. He's actually book smart genius level human being, right? But he used to let me use that, and he said to me, actually, if you studied this to a high level, with the rendering and all of that, you can make your own game, right? And as a kid, like my dad and all of them, and my mum, and even school, they would sometimes just make me write stories, like little stories out, because I hated school, right? And I hated the idea of having to do work. But when it came to something like that, I could just sit there and just write a story, just make up everything from like just a kid's point of view, right? What would the ant in a garden do, like that kind of shit like that, right? But yeah, I remember having this binder specifically, and I used to speak to one of my mates and was like, one day we're gonna make a game, bruv. We're gonna make a game, right? And I had a binder, and I had all the pages written out, the character profiles, right? All of that, I did all of that, right? And then I started to make my first little iterations of animation, stop animation on that Lifeforms program, right? Well, of course, you grow up and then you get distracted, and your friends influence you, and then you get immersed in pop culture, and all of these ideas you have as a kid kind of die, they fade away, you become like the rest of the herd, right? You get your first AstroTurf 90s, and you just want to play football. Yeah, MSN comes around, and you just want to talk to girls, right? Yeah, all of that shit happens, right, as you're growing up, right? You get influenced by people, and yeah, I've got my own experiences in life that I will talk about at some point, right? Once I get my control of my speech better, right? And I'm actually able to convey my emotions and my actual lived anecdotes. Once I can do that, I will really dive more deep into it, right? But it's surface level podcast shit that I've already chewed your ear off with for like an hour or however long I've been talking my shit, right? And like I said, that ambition translates into what I was talking about in ambitions and sacrifices, right? Now, that wasn't the last time. Like later on in the future, like when I got my own computer as an adult and all that, I mess with these stuff as well, right? So I've drawn comics before. I've made like actual Photoshop and Illustrator comics and shit like that. Make my own, because I did graphic design, so I've always been creative. I did music, I did graphic design, you know, and I'm just a G, right? Don't worry about who I really am, right? I'm a fucking G if you want to know, right? But it's me blowing my own horn again, being a prick, which is unnecessary, right? But yeah, that stuff really does still permeate in my life, right? And it also explains why I have that love for anime, and the first time I saw Spawn, and I drew my own characters based on that, and all that kind of shit you did as a kid, right? But yeah, as an adult, you don't really have time for that, right? Because life is fucking real. But like I said, I sacrificed a lot of quote-unquote real life relationships and all of that shit to work on these creative ventures and these skills and these ideas. Now, coming back around to it slowly but surely. And that is where me going and learning how to speak and how to storytell will help, right? It will help you on this podcast. Maybe, I know I spiraled into a lot of personal anecdotes as of late, but it's for a reason, right? It's for a reason. I know a lot of people are like me out there in the world, and they've experienced these same kind of things. So if a person like me, from where I'm from, tells you I experienced it too, maybe it will help you. Maybe it will give you that courage and that pride to actually pursue these things in a bit more depth. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you have you had any of those experiences with your work stories, Was you creative as a kid? Are you creative now, right? What did you think about all those 90s shows? And I stopped there, but I didn't really flesh out my thought, right? The idea of how the 90s shows are right, or how they were, right? Living in a time, right? The 90s and the early 2000s, right? Things were different. The clothes were different. The music was different. And some people say, like, as a child, you walk through life and you look at life with a certain tint, right? And it's a joke, it's a meme online, right? Your eyes, literally, your two eyes, your receptors of reality, right? They see life in a different glossing, right? And it's like a different filter on your life, right? And as you get older, your eyes start to dull, right? That's what they call aging. And when people die, their eyes dull, right? They white out, right? It's really, life is the process of death, right? Reality, right? But that's a bit more deep on the metaphysical side, right? But as a kid, you kind of see life through a different filter, right? And they joke about it like, yeah, turns 30, sepia, bam, right? Everything's fucking sepia, everything's black and white, right? Ironically, right? But anyway, yeah, that's funny for its own reasons. But that nostalgia, right? That feeling, that vibe, all of those things were created with, they really do represent and personify, idealize a time in history, right? That period of the 90s to the early 2000s before 2010s, right? Really did look different, feel different. And even politically, geopolitically, before Twin Towers and all of that happened, life was fucking different, right? And the kids nowadays, and every generation says this, but the kids nowadays won't understand that, right? When I talk to people that are born in the 70s and the 80s, they tell me the same thing, like how life was different. And to me, when I look at their lives and the stories they tell me, I literally see them in sepia, right, as fucking brown. Because there's the way they talk about their life and their stories is like, that's fucking old, isn't it, right? But then we romanticize the 1920s and the 1950s like it was, like living in that time would have been fun. Especially as a black person, it wouldn't have been fun, right? So don't romanticize it. Although it's really cool and it's nostalgic for its own aesthetically pleasing reasons, it wasn't a good time, right? Geopolitically and all of that, right? Just for most people, anyway. For some people, it was a great time, right? A great time in history. But art-wise and the Renaissance periods of life, right? I believe those times are coming back now, right? With people like me, people like you, right? Renaissance men and women who do different things, right? Are part of the arts and a part of culture and part of philosophy and all of these things that meld together to create interesting individuals. But that 90s nostalgia, I heard a man say, right, when I was studying, right, and I still do study when I get the time, that nostalgia is romanticized melancholy, right? And the reason it's, if you don't understand what I've just said there, melancholy is that kind of vibe, you know, like, here's another throwback or ADHD tangent, you know, like in Zelda Ocarina of Time, right? If you notice, a lot of those melodies had the theme of like sadness, right? Because it's a child running through this imaginary land trying to heal it of all these traumas and monsters that are popped up, right? It's really about healing traumas in the land and where Link is from. That's really what Zelda is about, right? But melancholy is that vibe, right? So that kind of unspoken sadness, right? The glum of the grey sky. Without the grey sky, you don't appreciate the sun, right? Just putting it there. Without the grey sky, you don't get rain. Without the rain, you don't live, right? So melancholy is a part of life. Now, when he said nostalgia is romanticized melancholy, I understood, right? I felt it, right? The reason it is that is because you can't live in the past, right? You can't relive the past, right? Although there's an argument to say that, like, it goes back to water again, right? Through your bodily fluids, your blood, your synovial fluid and all of that, it carries memories, right? Water itself carries memories because there's a finite amount of water on Earth and it only gets picked up from one place and transferred to another place. Just like physical, metaphysical energy, it only transfers, right? It only moves from one thing to another. It doesn't die, right? Just like water. The planet has never had any more water and it will never have any less water. It just moves to another form, right? So when you romanticize the past through nostalgia, you have to understand you cannot relive the past. The past is gone. So when we try to relive the past and we go and we try to remake the Fresh Prince and shit, you lose its essence, right? Anything you can think of like that. Sometimes they pull it off, but it becomes its own new thing. The reality is you cannot live the past again. It's done, it's done. But the nostalgia is the yearning to be in the past again, or the yearning to experience what you've once experienced. It's like a crackhead, right? They get their first hit and then they're forever chasing that hit, right? That is what nostalgia is. You get your first experience of something great and a good time in life, and you're forever chasing that good time again in life, right? It could be in your relationships, it could be in your business, it could be anything, right? But you must recognize that and let that go. And it's a good time to reminisce on it. And of course, if you don't know your history, you don't know your future. And he who controls the past controls the future, right? So it's good to understand history and read and study, but don't get too caught up in it, right? I know I gave you a lot of nostalgic things today, right? From your Sabrina to your City guy to your Wise guy, to Smart guy, sorry, all of that shit, right? All of that good stuff. X-Men, Spider-Man, right? But nostalgia, right, in the past is that Mary Jane becoming water, right in Peter's hands, right? It is that he will never be able to physically hold that history, that past again. It's gone, right? So if you take anything from this podcast, although I wanted to do a reaction video at the end again, right? Actually, you know what? We will do a reaction video because I promised it last time and I didn't follow through with my promises, right? So let's go. What we got here?
Everybody do to make it. I had to sit down and think about it. I don't want it like that. All I can buy is cars and shoes, a bigger house, more cars, and I want some more ass kissers. This is what rich do. This is what money is. If you really break it down, there's nothing you can really do with it. You're just stacking it up to give it to somebody. Because if something happened to you, you're not taking it with you. Once I start thinking like that, the desire for me to chase in this business and compete went away. I'ma just enjoy being a pilot. Because at the end of the day, that's really the only happiness that I get. I don't do the...
Alright, that was Mike Epps on The Breakfast Club, right? So what is he saying there? Part of that is true, and a part of it isn't, right? And I'm going to lose my train of thought. I always do when I do a reaction, right? Now, part A is his point about money and it not mattering to a certain extent. And part B is about him actually doing what makes him happy, right? The actual comedian side of him, the comedy part of it, right? So, part A, right? The money side. He's speaking from a position of power and speaking from a place of being already established financially and successful, right? The 1% of the 1%, right? Just like your Drakes, just like your Richard Pryors, just like your Virgils, your Louis Vuitton, whatever industry you're in, right? Your Cadence, right? The 1% of the 1%. So it's easy when you're the 1% to say, actually, this money doesn't matter. But what is more honourable and harder and more virtuous as a person not in the 1% that actually comes to form that opinion as well. Like myself, but I'm not all the way there because I do need money, right? I'm not an idiot. I know money, someone like Ron Wills would say, money's right up there with oxygen, right? For a good reason. You need it to function in this society. But it gets to a point where your integrity is more important than the money, right? Your time is more important than the money. Your health is more important than the money. Your relationships is more important than the money. Money was always meant to be just a promissory note of trade between two individuals, right? That's all it was ever meant to be, right? So to dedicate your whole life to it is foolish. What he's saying is right from that aspect, but let's not neglect our economics and our finances, right? It's more important for us as working class people at the bottom to really take our finances serious, right? And allocate it wisely, earn it wisely, spend it wisely, right? And it's not about just getting cars and all of that, no. Because when you're at the bottom, you've got to think about generational wealth and you've got to think about survival. You've got to think about your survival, your kids' survival, your family survival. So let's leave part A over there, right? The money talk we can talk about another time, right? But part B, what he says at the end of it, he's just going to focus on being a comedian, right? And the comic side of what he does, which actually makes him happy. Now, hat tilt, not hats off, because what is under this hat? I'm definitely not bald, right? I'm definitely not balding, right? But I'm not taking it off because I'm at work and I've got my slick back bun, right? Yeah. So hats off to him, hat on to him, because that is really what it's about in life, right? After you've achieved all the main... Alright, let's look at it a different way. Let's say happiness in life is the main quest, right? And money is the side quest, right? So he's accumulated enough money, which would really be the main quest in our position, right? He's accumulated enough money. Now he can see, actually, being funny, having a laugh is what makes him happy, right? Is what makes it worth living for him, right? And everyone has their own thing that makes it worth waking up and living another day, right? Even if you don't right now, I would say to you, I've been there too, and a lot of us have been there. All you have to do is live this day, right? Just survive this day. Tomorrow you don't know what will happen. Just make it till tomorrow. That's all you got to do, right? Just make it till tomorrow, and things will change, and things will get better. The world is a better place with you in it, right? Now, to that point, you must take your happiness very seriously, right? And like Dante says, who is Dante? Dante is a comedian also, but a friend of Patrice O'Neill from the Black Phillip show, and he has his own show. But he always says, put your happiness first, right? Because if you don't, other people won't, right? And it's important, right? It's very important because it gives you the reason to live. It gives you a reason to smile when things go bad. Not only does that smiling release endorphins, it really does chemically change your body and make you feel good, right? So yes, I can't go too deep into it now because I've stretched this out very much so long, right? And I don't even know if anyone would want to listen to the end, right? But if you have, hats off to you again, right? Hat off, right? Thank you for staying with me all the way through. I hope I've accompanied you and really give you things to think about, made you laugh, made you smile, made you happy, right? Hopefully, right? If not you, then me, right? If not me, then who? Anyway, yeah. Yes, it's important to put your happiness first and do what it is that makes you feel happy and not worry too much about finances. Now, don't fuck off your life. Don't say to yourself, oh, drugs make me happy, so I'm going to do drugs and nothing but drugs. Oh, music makes me happy, so I'm going to do music and nothing but music. No. Look after your affairs, right? Look after your finances, look after your health, look after your mental health, right? And that is part of your happiness. Tend to your garden, right? Watch your garden flourish, right? So it doesn't matter if you get a lot of money or a little money when you leave here, you can't take it with you anyway, but you can take away those memories. Now, just on a science fiction note, if when we die we just exist and we get to dream, please, I hope we just get to dream when we die, right? But I don't think that's the case anyway. I think it's just a black whiteout, right? Or blackout, right? But if we do just get to forever exist in our consciousness of what we've experienced in life, it would be very important to experience as much good and happy times you could, right? So you can relive and really permeate your consciousness in the nothingness that is death after life, right? So it's important from that aspect too. If you believe in that woo shit, right? Yeah, it's important to be happy on earth, right? Now I think I'm going to leave it there, right? Because that's enough for today. We've spoken about so much. Now, if you, for any reason, are affected by any of the things I've spoken about in this podcast, feel free to reach out to me. You can do that in the comments. You can slide in my DMs on any of the socials. Drivers Make Podcast, my personal socials. Some English Kid, SUM English Kid on Instagram. Athens Elder, all one word, on Twitter. You can reach me by email, driversmakepodcast@gmail.com if you've been affected. I'm not doing the BBC thing. If you've been affected by this, the themes of this show, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm just saying if you want to talk about your experiences and nostalgia and funny work stories and anything like that, or if you want me to talk about something, you can reach out to me on any of those things. I think you can even comment now on Spotify, right? Crazy. Spotify is big, right? Big up Sweden, Spotify, right? I think it's Swedish. Eventually Spotify is going to be Facebook, right? Mark my words, that is my projection. But yeah, you can reach me on all of those, and you can talk to me on Patreon. You can get exclusive videos made for you over on Patreon, Drivers Make Podcast. And don't forget, on YouTube, Drivers Make is the main channel, right? And over on YouTube, Season 1 and Season 2 is happening real time over there. If you're watching on YouTube you're watching behind, so you're about 2 to 3 years behind the actual real-time making of Drivers Make Podcast, which we're now on Season 3, right? So if you're watching this now, you're probably watching on Spotify, which is free for all, right? I haven't monetized it, I haven't put ads up, so you don't have to watch no ads, you can just listen to it and be in peace. I'm not trying to sell you anything, right? And I don't want no one else to sell you anything. Yet. Maybe, are we going to become corporate shills in the future? right? What's going to happen when the Truman Show boat hits the painting? Are we actually going to have to go up into that like the network office, right? You know, I've really been into the BBC building and the radio and all that. I've actually seen the newsroom, like, that's another topic, right? But are we actually going to have to go up and make a deal with these people to have our show continue, or are we just going to stop our show and go live a real normal life like what we presume Truman did? Or maybe Truman left the Truman Show and decided to become Jim Carrey, right? Anyway, right? All that spill, right? Drivers, mate! Podcast! I hope you're having a good time. I hope you're getting the work done, even though it's a gloomy, rainy night in Georgia, right? Wherever you are in the world, right? I hope you really enjoy your day, right? We wouldn't appreciate the sun if it weren't for the rain. And if it weren't for the rain, there would be no life on Earth. If it wasn't for water, me and you wouldn't be, right? So just think about that. One day we must explore the sea, right? Love you guys. Take care. Drivers Mate Podcast. See you later. Drivers Mate Podcast. Truman Show's Truman Show. A real man in a real van in his real life and a reality show speaking about things he really shouldn't be speaking about. What do you expect? Because it's the only real person in the show. Season 3 now available on Spotify for free. Seasons 1 and 2 on YouTube available in real time. Please like, subscribe and share, and check out Patreon. Peace.